Why are you sitting there? My mother is standing. Get up immediately. My husband shouted in the crowded bus, grabbing my arm. I was 9 months pregnant. The passengers froze. Then, an unfamiliar elderly woman loudly said just one sentence. But before we continue, please write in the comments which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy listening. Vera, in her 9th month of pregnancy, felt more like a wrung-out lemon than a future mother. The apartment where she had lived for the past 3 years was steeped in someone else's life. It was the domain of Nina Arvna, Igor's mother. Vera felt like an uninvited guest here. Every object, every piece of furniture, seemed to scream of her mother-in-law's presence. Igor was like a shadow, always lurking at the edge of her vision. Control, that was the word that best described their relationship. He controlled her finances, even though Vera, working as an accountant in a small firm, was the main breadwinner. He controlled her interactions, her appearance, her thoughts. It seemed he even tried to control her feelings. Igor didn't have a steady job, scraping by with occasional earnings, and Vera felt this only fueled his need for power. Nina Arvna was a silent observer, always ready to support her son. Vera couldn't recall a single instance when her mother-in-law took her side. Even in the pettiest arguments, when Igor was openly rude or humiliated Vera, Nina Arvna remained silent, a silence that spoke louder than words. Sometimes, catching her mother-in-law's glance, Vera sensed a mix of pity and contempt. Vera was exhausted, mentally and physically. Pregnancy was taking a toll on her, and it wasn't just the morning sickness or swollen feet. A heaviness weighed on her soul, restricting her movements, poisoning every breath. She was afraid of conflict, of loneliness, of the future, of Igor himself. She remembered how it all began. Romantic dates, sweet words, promises of eternal love. Igor had seemed attentive, caring, strong. But gradually, like poison, jealousy, suspicion, and a desire to dominate crept into their relationship. Vera tried to resist, but with each attempt, her strength waned. She withdrew into herself, trying not to provoke Igor's anger. On the day of the trip to the clinic, she felt particularly unwell. Nausea, dizziness, and back pain plagued her. But Vera silently got up, put on her most inconspicuous dress, and tied her hair into a tight bun. She knew any misstep, however small, could irritate Igor. He was waiting for her in the hallway, glancing impatiently at his watch. Nina Arvna was already sitting in the entryway, dressed and ready to go. She didn't even glance at Vera. "Why are you dawdling?" Igor grumbled, grabbing her arm. "We're late." Vera flinched at his rough touch but said nothing. She was used to it. She always stayed silent. The entire walk to the bus stop, Igor complained about traffic, doctors, life in general. Vera walked beside him, head down, trying not to draw attention. Nina Arvna followed a few steps behind, silent as always. A crowd was already gathered at the bus stop. Vera felt nausea rising. She swallowed hard and gripped Igor's hand tighter. "I feel sick," she whispered. "You'll manage," Igor snapped, not slowing down. "The bus is coming." The bus was packed with people rushing about their business on that gray autumn day. Vera, 9 months pregnant, struggled to squeeze into the aisle, clutching the handrail with a white-knuckled grip. Her belly ached, breathing grew harder, and the stuffiness in the bus felt unbearable. Igor and Nina Arvna followed, showing no concern for her condition. After a few stops, a seat finally opened up. Feeling her legs buckle, Vera quickly sank into it, ignoring the disapproving glances of other passengers. She was genuinely unwell, and her only desire was to rest for a moment. Suddenly, like a bolt from the blue, Igor's harsh voice rang out. "Why are you sitting there? My mother is standing. Get up immediately." Vera flinched as if slapped. Igor's words, crude and humiliating, hit like a blow. Her face flushed with shame and humiliation. A tense silence fell over the bus. The passengers turned away, pretending nothing was happening. No one wanted to intervene. No one wanted to deal with the rude man. Vera lowered her eyes, unsure of what to do. She was used to giving in, obeying Igor's will, prioritizing his desires over her own. It was easier that way, less likely to spark a scene. But now, in this crowded bus, under the scrutinizing gazes of strangers, she felt an unbearable shame, shame for her weakness, for her spinelessness. Nina Arvna, standing beside Igor, cast a contemptuous glance at Vera. Her eyes held undisguised judgment. She had always considered Vera unworthy of her son, weak and characterless. Watching Vera's hesitation now only confirmed her opinion. Vera felt nausea rising again. It was as if she couldn't breathe. A sharp pain shot through her belly, and she instinctively clutched it. Igor, impatient with her lack of response, raised his voice again. "What did I tell you? Get up now." At that moment, a calm but firm voice came from the back of the bus. "Sir, don't yell at a pregnant woman. It's unbecoming." All eyes turned to an elderly passenger standing a few meters from Vera. She was a tiny, frail woman with kind wrinkles around her eyes and gray hair neatly tied in a bun. Her gaze radiated inner strength and wisdom. Igor, taken aback, was momentarily speechless. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially by strangers. The elderly woman, unfazed by his confusion, continued, "Young lady, you are not an object, and you are not his property. Protect yourself, not his pride." Her words hit Vera like a revelation. It was as if she woke from a long sleep. For the first time in years, she felt someone saw her not as an extension of Igor, not as a function, but as a person deserving of respect and care. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't know how to express her gratitude to this stranger. Igor, regaining his composure, tried to snap back. "Mind your own business. Who asked you?" But the elderly woman simply looked at him, her gaze a mix of contempt and pity, and Igor fell silent. Vera felt dozens of eyes on her, some sympathetic, some curious, some judgmental, but none mattered as much as the new feeling rising in her chest. It wasn't fear, not longing, not a desire to hide. It was resolve. Vera stayed silent, not justifying herself, not apologizing, not trying to explain to Igor that she was truly unwell, that her pregnancy was difficult, that she was exhausted. Those explanations were pointless. Igor would find a way to blame, shame, or humiliate her regardless. She knew this as well as she knew her multiplication tables. Instead, she looked at the elderly woman. In her eyes, she saw not pity, but support, understanding, and pride. That brief but meaningful glance was the final straw. Vera stood up, like a puppet obeying someone else's will. Igor, snapping out of his stupor, tried to stop her. "Where are you going?" he hissed, grabbing her arm. "I told you." But Vera pulled her hand free, not harshly, not rudely, but with a new, quiet dignity. "Nowhere," she replied. Her voice was unusually firm, confident. "I'm getting off." And she did. The bus stopped at the next stop. Vera stepped onto the sidewalk without looking back. She felt the passengers' gazes on her back, heard Igor's indignant muttering, but didn't stop. She walked forward, not knowing where, with no idea what she would do next. But for the first time in a long time, she felt free. Free from the weight of fear, from constant humiliation, from Igor's suffocating control, free to choose her own path. Hours passed in a blur. Vera wandered the streets, aimlessly drifting through parks and squares. She had almost no money. Igor controlled her finances, her documents, her belongings. Everything was left in the apartment. She stood at a crossroads, pregnant, without means, without support, but with a firm resolve to change her life. Who could she call? Who could help her? She had no parents, no close relatives. There was only her friend. Vera and Katia had been friends since childhood. They went to school together, dreamed of the future together, experienced their first loves together. But life had pulled them apart. Vera married Igor, while Katia moved to another city to study. They rarely saw each other, but their bond never broke. Vera knew Katia was always strong and independent, always able to stand up for herself, always clear about what she wanted from life. Perhaps that's why Vera had been avoiding her lately. She was ashamed to admit to her friend how pitiful and insignificant her life had become. But now, she had no choice. Vera dialed Katia's number. The ringing seemed to last forever. She was beginning to think Katia wouldn't answer when she finally heard her voice. "Hello, Katia, it's me, Vera." The despair in Vera's voice was so palpable that Katia immediately sensed something was wrong. "Vera, what's going on? Why do you sound like that?" Vera hesitated, unsure where to begin. How could she tell her friend that she, a successful accountant, the wife of a supposedly thriving businessman, was living in hell? "Katia, I need your help," she finally whispered. "I've left Igor." There was a pause on the other end. Vera held her breath, waiting for Katia's reaction. "You left?" Katia repeated. Her voice carried surprise, but not judgment, more like relief. "Are you serious?" "Yes," Vera replied quietly. "I can't do it anymore." "Where are you now?" Katia asked. "I don't know," Vera admitted. "I'm just wandering the city. I have no money, no belongings, nothing." "Don't be silly," Katia said. "Come to my place right now. I'm still at the old address, remember? I'll meet you." Vera felt tears stream down her cheeks, tears of relief, gratitude, hope. "Thank you, Katia," she whispered. "Thank you so much." "No need, silly," Katia replied. "Just get here quick. I've already put the kettle on." Vera wiped her tears and glanced at her watch. It was about an hour's bus ride to Katia's. She headed to the bus stop. Her stomach growled with hunger. She hadn't eaten since morning, and it was already evening. But Vera didn't feel the hunger. She felt only hope. When she arrived at Katia's apartment, Vera knocked timidly. The door swung open, and there stood Katia. She looked a bit older but still as energetic and vibrant as ever. Seeing Vera, Katia gasped and rushed to hug her. "Verka," she exclaimed. "Finally, I'm so glad to see you." She pulled Vera into the apartment. Katia's place was small but cozy and clean. Photos hung on the walls. Books and souvenirs lined the shelves. Vera felt calm and safe here. "Now tell me what happened," Katia said, seating Vera at the table. "I've poured some tea. We'll eat something soon." Vera told Katia everything, how she married Igor out of deep love, how he gradually turned into a tyrant, how he controlled her life, humiliated and insulted her, how she feared him, felt trapped, and dreamed of freedom. Katia listened silently, occasionally refilling Vera's tea or passing her sandwiches. When Vera finished, Katia sighed and hugged her. "My poor girl," she said. "You've been through so much. But don't worry. Everything will be okay now. I'll help you." Katia kept her word. She took Vera in, fed her, clothed her, helped with paperwork. She listened to Vera's endless fears and complaints, offering support and encouragement. Vera lived with Katia like in a cocoon woven of care and quiet. After escaping the bus, after that trembling call filled with fear and hope, she felt safe for the first time in years. Katia's small but cozy apartment became her sanctuary, a place where she could simply exist without fear or reproach. Katia surrounded Vera with warmth and understanding. She didn't ask unnecessary questions or demand explanations, just quietly poured tea, tucked a pillow behind Vera's back, or patted her hand. She knew Vera didn't need pity right now. She needed silence and support. Vera's first task was gathering documents. Despite the difficulty of moving with her large belly, she found the strength to visit government offices, collect certificates, and make copies. Every interaction with officials was exhausting, but she knew she had to do it for herself and her future child. Katia helped her find a good lawyer. The young woman listened carefully to Vera's story, nodded, and said, "You have a strong case. Proving psychological abuse is challenging, but possible. We need to gather all the evidence, witness statements, call recordings, medical reports, anything that supports your claims." Vera dove into the work. She spent hours at the computer, sorting through old photos, recalling conversations, and writing down anything that could be useful in court. The work distracted her from heavy thoughts and gave her a sense of control. As an accountant, she was used to order and precision, and now, in the most chaotic period of her life, she sought that same structure. Her pregnancy was difficult. Vera often felt weak, plagued by headaches, but she tried to ignore it. She focused on her child, determined to be strong for them. Igor called Katia several times, begging to know where Vera was, then threatening, shouting, insulting. Katia simply hung up. She knew Igor could be dangerous and avoided engaging with him. Vera knew about these calls but tried not to think about Igor. She had erased him from her life as if he had never existed. She focused on the future, on her child, on the new life she wanted to build. Finally, the day of delivery arrived. Vera's labor was long and difficult, but when they placed the tiny, warm bundle on her chest, she forgot everything. Tears of joy filled her eyes. She had become a mother. With her child's birth, Vera discovered an incredible strength within herself. She realized she could do anything. All her fears and doubts were behind her. Now she had someone to live for, to fight for. She named her son Sasha. Little Sasha became her light, her hope, her love. She could spend hours watching him, marveling at his tiny hands and feet, listening to his soft breathing. A few months after giving birth, Vera filed for divorce. When Igor learned of it, he managed to arrange a meeting. He begged her to return, swore he would change, claimed he loved her, and couldn't live without her. Vera looked at him calmly, indifferently. She no longer saw the man she once loved. Before her stood a stranger, a pitiful and weak man. "I'm not coming back, Igor," Vera said firmly. "I don't love you anymore, and I don't want to see you." Igor tried to persuade her, threatened, shouted. But Vera remained steadfast. She knew she was making the right choice. The divorce went surprisingly smoothly. Igor didn't contest the court's decision or demand a division of property. He simply signed the papers and left. Vera breathed a sigh of relief. She was free, free from Igor, from his control, from his humiliations. She rented a small apartment in another part of the city, furnishing it modestly but cozily. She bought new furniture, hung paintings on the walls, and placed flowers on the windowsill. In the evenings, she walked with Sasha in the park, read him books, sang him songs. She watched him grow, learn to speak, walk, and laugh. Each of his milestones filled her heart with joy and pride. She often thought of the elderly woman on the bus, the stranger whose single sentence had changed her life. Vera was grateful for helping her see herself, for giving her the push toward a new life. Vera was no longer afraid. She knew she was a strong, independent woman, capable of anything, deserving of happiness. And she was happy. Vera lived a full life, loved and was loved, raised her son, worked, and pursued her passions. She was free. For the first time, she smiled not out of politeness, but from peace and happiness, smiling sincerely, joyfully, for her new life, for herself.